Also, we'd like to thank those who invited me to be here tonight. It is a pleasure. Before we get started, I wanted to make a notation for tonight for the candidates. Signing the advisement of council, Amy Horn has decided not to join us for tonight for this panel discussion, so that's why you don't see her this evening. You do see the rest of the candidates, and we are going to provide voters with an opportunity to become informed about the candidates that they'll be voting for. We're going to have the candidates briefly introduce themselves. They each pulled a number so that we can be fair about who's going to go first. And there are going to be some questions that the candidates are going to answer. Please let them do so. And then at the end, we are going to have some time for you to ask questions of your candidates for City Council. So with that, again, they have drawn to go in order. And as a result of that, it looks like Mr. Sept has number one. We're going to begin with him.
Format question. We have 10 minutes now to introduce and answer some questions. Is that how it was designed?
I'd say if you guys can limit your to 15 if possible, that I think will be okay.
I was going to do less than that. Over here? You want us over here?
I think that probably would be better.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Sept. I am a retired school teacher. My wife, Margie, the former Margie Keys, is here. My mother, my son, my daughter, my son-in-law. I'd like to introduce them. And thank all of you for coming. I taught at Salina for 35 years, coached a lot of the time along the way. Also, I served on Salina City Council for 17 years. And I was thinking about some of the questions that were forwarded to us. And honestly, some of the problems that we've been confronted with, City Council is very similar to what I think happens with school government and operations. And to be honest, I've dealt with, the council's dealt with, pardon me, multi-million-dollar budgets, personnel problems, acquisition of land, lawsuits. And I honestly think along the way, one thing that I have learned as a council member is that I'm not to get involved in the day-to-day operations. And what I mean by that is we hire people at the city level, the safety service director, and the others that are full-time. If there's a problem with the water department or parks and recreation department, it would not be in my best interest or the best interest of the city if I personally became involved. And so I believe that, honestly, if I was a school board member, I'd have that same attitude. You hire people that are competent, and you have them do the job. I coached for a long time with a man that he gave division of labor to assistant coaches, and he didn't meddle. You go do your job. And for the most part, he did not overreach that, and he was very successful. And again, I think that the same attitude would hold true to being a member of the school board. We hire a superintendent to do the job, we hire a treasurer, we hire other administrators, and for the most part, I think that the school board should be a silent partner. They should be informed, know what's going on, but not be involved in the day-to-day workings of the school district. As for qualifications, that was another question. I think qualifications to be a member of the school board, for me, it's very simple. First, you gotta love kids. That's number one. Second, I think that you have to have an affection for people and respect people. And then I think third, or right in there somewhere, you have to have a very high priority for education. And I have those things. I think it was on my second grade report card that says place well with others. Another question was, what do we do well? And I think one thing from my observation of the school district, what we do well, we have professional development for teachers with the new standards and everything coming down from the federal and the state level. And we've had, in-service and meetings and mentorship. And I think that we do a good job with keeping the staff up to date on what the new rules, regulations, and the Ohio Revised Code is. And I think that that's important. I don't necessarily agree with all the standardized testing. I think there's way too much standardized testing. But I think if the law says that we have to do it, we better know what that law is, especially if it affects your children's graduation, or those that we know. Another question was, what can we do to improve our district? And not to be blunt, but I honestly think we've got to stop the bleeding. And what I mean by that is we lost how many teachers at the high school just this past year? We've been through a number of people from the top to the bottom as far as going to other school districts. I don't want us to just be a training ground for other schools. I want us to be a destination point and not just a stopover point. I think we can improve on that. I'm borrowing a quote from a friend that said we need to promote and foster a school district that provides for personal and professional growth. And I think that's what we need in this school district. I recently read a biography on Abraham Lincoln, my favorite president, and when he ran for Congress, he said one of the most important tenets of this new land that we live in is that we have to have social mobility. And obviously, he meant climbing up the ladder. So people that work hard and go to work every day and do their best should be able to have social mobility. And finally, I want to be a board member for the city of Salina quite simply to make this the best school district in the state of Ohio. I honestly think at one time we were a fantastic school district. I would strive to see us reach those heights that we had at one time. Thank you.
For 5 years, and eventually became employed with the Salina City Schools, where I stayed for 37 years. During that time, I was involved in educational scholarships, scholarship selection committees, the medical consortium for the 13 school districts, where I was the chairman of that committee for 4 years. I was on negotiations committees, the superintendent selection committees, and then I retired in 2014, just 15 months ago. And I now volunteer my services at the East Elementary Reading Program called BARC. I'm a member of St. Paul's United Methodist Church, where I serve on committees there. I'm a member of the Lake Area Arts Group. In other words, I'd like to be involved with my city. I believe in this town, I believe in this school district, and I believe in our students. And for that reason, I'd like to be involved in the school board. I have the time to do it now, and it's something I'm very interested in. As Bill said, you know, I have done some research on this. We are not involved in the daily hiring and firing and the workings of the schools. We are a policy-making group, and that's something that I think is misunderstood. However, that being said, I would want people to feel that they could contact me and that I would approach the proper people trying to get the answers so that we can all be better informed. By being better informed, I think I took a major step with that this week. I'm familiar with all of the schools, but I spent the day yesterday traveling between the schools. I first went to a couple of math lessons over at the 5th grade building where I asked questions about Common Core and got some terrific answers. Common Core isn't as scary as I thought it was. I mean, they're still teaching kids math and the old-fashioned way and possibly in different ways if they need it too to help them learn. From that building, I went to the middle school, talked to the cafeteria staff, saw the food that was being prepared, the ample portions of good-looking food. Then I went to East and volunteered with a reading program that is extremely well run. And after that, you know, I talked to a principal who was too busy to talk. She was eating her lunch at her desk and headed over to another building where the principal was worried about the well-being of students. It's a busy district. Today I went to the high school and learned a little bit more about some programs there that I didn't even know existed. My point being with all this is that if we're going to be involved in something, we have to be aware of what's being done in that group that we want to be involved in. I would believe in supporting the staff. I believe in supporting the schools. I believe that we have to listen, we have to present the information to the proper people and move on with it from there. I learned a little bit more about state budgeting. That was a shocker. I mean, you know, we have, for instance, 215 students that are being open enrolled in other districts. The money that is given by the state to those students goes with the students. That's an enormous drain. We have to find out why they're going to those other schools, and that's probably a problem. What does Salina schools do well? We take really good care of their students on all levels. Every employee does. And if they need to communicate with parents, I believe that they email them, I believe that they text them, and a lot of that is done after their working hours. I also think that we need to improve communication on a different level. Some people don't understand why there are fog delays on days that there are, or why we have days off for certain holidays. You know, just little things that school employees take for granted. We get it. We know how it works. But some of the people who don't work in the daily system of the school operations do not understand why we do what we do. So, you know, sometimes I think we just need to take that step a little further to make sure that they know. I touched on Common Core earlier. I think a problem with that is a misunderstanding that the testing, the PARC testing and some of those things were added to the requirements at the same time. It was very overwhelming. Common Core as a whole is a fairly good concept. The belief is that it's a very global, transient society. People move from place to place much more than they used to. That being said, they want kids to be taught the same exact materials in the same exact way, so that when they walk into a different school district, they're prepared to keep up with the students that they enroll with at that time. And so, you know, that's important to me too, that we work on communicating that to people so that they, you know, don't become concerned about why we're doing it differently. Probably my one biggest concern that I have is I'm learning that the permanent improvement money is very minimal. That being said, we have general fund money, permanent improvement money. The only way we're really getting permanent improvement money right now is through TIF districts. It's about $250,000. We have a roof that needs to be repaired at the Ed complex. We have boilers that are down. We have water systems that need to be repaired, and very little money to pay for it. Therein comes the problem between whether teachers are getting the raise that they deserve, because we have to figure out which pocket to take that money from. So I think we're going to have to do something about permanent improvement money and how to, we're putting Band-Aids on things and Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids right now. And it's because there's not enough money to pay for proper improvements. So that is why there's talk of a new school system, new school buildings built within the school system. That's going to have to be figured out at what level that is to be done. We have some old buildings. I saw it yesterday. I knew it was there, but when you look at it through neutral eyes, it's different. Very crowded, 2 electrical outlets per room. It makes it complicated to plug in your computers and have the kids learn with new technology. So, you know, there are things that need to be changed a little bit along the way. I am concerned about school security. I know that we have the little buzzers at the door, but they can't see who they're letting in sometimes. So there again, that's some things that need to be updated. Doors have to be left open because there's not proper ventilation. There's just a lot of issues, and I think I'm, you know, after especially looking into this the last couple of days, I feel much better informed about it. But as a result, I am looking forward to seeing all of you at the polls in November, and I hope that you will give me some thought as you vote, and I'll turn this over to number 3.
Things haven't changed. We still don't have a toll on the podium. My name's Kurt Schellebarger, and I'm a 1972 graduate of Salina City Schools. I've spent 35 years in education in 6 different school districts. 17 of those 35 years have been spent in Salina. 11 years I served as a high school social studies teacher, and 24 years I've served in various administrative positions. I work very closely with a lot of boards of education, some very good, and some not so good. While working in Salina, I've recently seen Board of Education candidates run for election and re-election unopposed. That is why I'm running. I thought it was time to provide a choice for district voters and to work to improve the situation at this time. When I went to the Board of Elections to pick up my petition to become a candidate for the board, they hand out a little pamphlet, and it's called Running for Your Local School Board. It's a guide for school board candidates. And if you don't mind me reading to you, I'd like to take a few snippets out of this pamphlet, and then I would ask you to think about what's being said and think for yourself, is this what's happening in Salina at this time? So if you don't mind me reading to you, it's like elementary school once again. It says, what does a school board member do? It says, perhaps the most important responsibility of a school board is to employ superintendent and treasurer and hold them accountable for achieving those educational goals and managing the day-to-day affairs of the district in accordance with the school board's policies. We went through 4 superintendents in the last 3.5 years. Board members make decisions on a wide range of issues, such as hiring and evaluating a superintendent and treasurer, setting district policy, planning student services, goal setting and long-range planning, adopting curriculum, establishing budgets, engaging parents, being good fiscal stewards, acting in the best interest of the school district and within the scope of their legal authority, and creating community relations programs. Another important part of the board's work is its public relations role. School board members help build public support and understanding of public education and lead the public in demanding a quality education. The school board serves as a link between schools and the public. And I'm going to skip this part because it has been stated already twice that school boards aren't to get involved in the day-to-day operations. They're supposed to set policy and hire good administrators to make sure those policies and the education that is provided is the best it can be. Another part of it talks about what a good board member is. And a good board member, it says, should vote at all times in the best interest of the school district, is flexible and realizes there are times when change must be made, when tradition cannot be honored, and when pressure must be ignored. Is flexible, okay, I just read that, excuse me, remembers that board business often requires confidentiality, especially in processes involving students, personnel, land acquisition, negotiations, and security. More things. A good board member is a good listener at board meetings, on the street corner, in church, or anywhere else approached, but never commits himself or herself, the board or the administration. And finally, a good board member knows that the reputation of the entire school district is reflected in his or her behavior and attitude. The last couple of years, I've seen a lot of other districts and boards do very well for themselves and for their communities. And when I go talk to those people, or when we run across each other, they say, hey, what's going on in Salina schools? And I simply say, I think it's just time for a change. And I also think it's time for things to become not only fair in Salina schools, but also competitive with surrounding districts. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark King, and I'm here to give you my opinion of what a school board member should be. But first, I'd like to introduce myself and thank you all for coming tonight and being part of the process. I'm married to Angie. She's been my wife for 24 years. I have two kids that are students. I have one that just graduated a couple years ago, and I have a junior in high school right now. That's Erica and Jamie. And I have been a lifelong resident of Salina. I graduated from Salina High School. I have a business management degree from Anderson University. And I've been my own employer. I've been the owner of a construction company for over 28 years, King Construction here in Salina. Before that, it was another name, but that's besides. I was a former coach here at Salina. I coached football for a couple years, coached girls softball. And I was a TARS advisor here at the school. I've been on the county workforce investment board. I was a past member of that. I was the past Mercer County Church League volleyball president. I was a past youth pastor at our church, and I presently still do music at our church. The reason that I'm running for school board is I want to make sure that our system, our education, provides the best education possible for our students. And I want to make sure that it represents our community values. Now, I'm not a big public speaker, so I'm not going to be quite as good as some of these other people, but bear with me. I'm going to be looking at my notes. I've been a lifelong resident of Salina, and I've grown up in this community, and I'm raising my family here. And I've conducted business here. And it has given me the opportunity to understand the history of the school system, how it relates to our current challenges. My management and business experience gives me a perspective that's a little different than most of my peers up here on the stage. I've dealt with budgets, purchasing, sales, and all aspects of managing projects and personnel. My construction experience uniquely qualifies me to help assess and assist in the decisions that will need to be made in regards to our long-term needs, our buildings, and in the possible needs of repair and replacement of these buildings. But more important than the buildings is my concern for our children and their future. I want to ensure that they receive an education that will enable them to compete worldwide in the 21st century, an education that instills pride in our community and reflects the area's values of hard work and family. As a board member, I would like to be a conduit between our schools and the community. I want to help communicate concerns of the taxpayers to the school administrators and educators, as well as helping the school personnel get their message to the public. My desire would be to see the continued use of advancement of technology through the system. This is essential to give our kids the tools to be competitive in this new world economy. I also believe that technical education, hands-on training, needs to be made readily available to our students. With the realization that not all students are geared for post-secondary education, this option is necessary to provide our community with a well-trained and educated workforce. By teaching our students hands-on skills, we develop a pool of employees that is imperative to help local businesses and entrepreneurs to expand their operations and attract other industries to our areas. This added business and employment will help expand the tax base for our community, lessening the effects of reductions in state funding by adding additional resources to our educational system. These additional monies will in turn help to address the problem of teacher retention. With a larger pool of funding, wages for school employees can rise to compete with the surrounding districts. Common Core education seems to be a hot topic locally, statewide, nationally, the whole deal. I have always believed that education should be controlled and administered by the local community. Local determination of curriculum helps to ensure that our community values and beliefs are taught. Full disclosure of what is being taught to our kids should always be available to the parents. I don't want Columbus or Washington determining what we teach our children. A building program has been under consideration in recent years. Living in the city as long as I have, I've seen both wise and not so great decisions made in regards to our buildings. I was a student when the current middle school was being built. I had to actually pick a desk up during Christmas break, the last day of school, and carry it all the way over to the other building because they didn't have trucks to do that. So all the boys carried the desk over to the other school. Couldn't get away with that now, could we? So I was a student there, and I was also living in this community and a business member in this community when the building programs of the 90s took place. We are again at a crossroads as to what we do with our facilities. My desire is to see a long-term comprehensive plan developed using demographics and facility needs for the next 50 years. We need to make an educated and informed decision as to the future of our district's facilities. I've had the opportunity, as many of you, to attend classes in most of these buildings, and the teachers and the friends that I've made through these years that I've been here left me with lasting memories. That being said, I don't have a sacred cow in this situation. I believe that these proposed studies determine that some of these buildings need to be replaced, then we need to make a plan and achieve these goals. If, on the other hand, these buildings can be rehabilitated for a realistic term and cost, then let's do it. My main concern is that there is a plan that is communicated well to the taxpayers and that we all work in unison to ensure that it is supported by the community and the job gets done. It is hard to convince voters to approve a project that hasn't been well researched and developed. Good planning will help reestablish the public trust in our leadership and help us move forward and ensure the Salina City school system will have one of the best school systems in the state. I see my role as a school board member as twofold. One, I want to make sure that we are fiscally responsible in our district. And two, that I would educate the general public as to the needs and concerns of our schools. As an observer from the community, I believe there's a real need for stronger communication and education concerning the school budget. The public needs to be reminded on an annual basis of our revenue and expenditures, what we receive from the state, income and property taxes, how much of the general fund goes to salaries, and how much we are spending on buildings and maintenance. I believe it's important to have meetings that will provide this information to the public, using all types of media, PowerPoint presentations, graphs, pie charts, whatever it takes. Also to include that information in handouts, newspaper flyers, and on the website. It is important that everyone is given this information so that we all understand the budget and have the ability to make an informed decision. My ultimate goal is in this position is to be a good steward and a communicator, teaching all involved on how the budget works. This is why I ask for your vote and support to be elected to the Salina City School Board. Thank you very much.
Obviously, my fellow candidates are very eloquent in their speeches. Mine will not be near as eloquent as theirs. My name is Ken Vetters. I've been a member of the Salina community since 1967. I came here as a history teacher, football coach, track coach. In 1973, I went to the IC building as the administrator down there for 4 years. We had the freshman. One of my famous students is Mr. Giesky there. We have a little interesting story that we'll tell you afterwards. And at the end of those 4 years, I came back to high school and I was here for 24 years. I was out 2 years. I ran for the school board, and I've been on the board for the last, will be 16 years in December. So I think I'm well qualified. One of the things that all of the candidates speak about is we're doing this for kids. And so decisions that I made based on something that I was taught by Ralph Stelzer many years ago is you do all the things that's good for kids. If it's not good for kids, vote no. And so that's what has basically guided me all these years. There's some questions that they ask us that challenge the demand by our public schools. They've changed. How do you hope to support and encourage the students, and the teachers and the staff. What we try to do is make sure that they have the best available things that they can have. iPads, computers, smart boards, whatever it is, make sure that we put those in the hands of teachers so they can do the best job. One of the things that they want to know is, what do I think we do well? I think we educate our students well. We have, in my opinion, probably the best staff in the area. Most of the staff that is assembled at this particular time, I didn't personally hire them, but I had an opportunity to bring them into the system. And I think we have an excellent staff. I think they do a good job. And I think that that serves us well. We are a school with excellent distinction, speaks well for our staff. The next one they asked was about balancing the high budget. It's not been, but the last couple of years that we have not been cut. Last year we got money. The coming year we are going to get an increase of $500,000 the first year, $300,000 the second year. So we did not get cut this past year, and we do have $800,000 over 2 years that we didn't expect. The Common Core, a lot of us have heard about it. The Common Core is nothing but a set of standards. One of the bad things about Common Core, as Mrs. Voorhees has mentioned, was the BART testing. One of the ladies in Salina, who was a local opponent of Common Core, and then decided that she probably could do more if she went to Columbus. Did that, and through her effort and many people's effort like her, the BART testing is gone. Now we'll see what they come up with next, if it's any better, but we hope it is. And in the building program, so far this year, since school started, we have spent almost $250,000 fixing band-aid stuff. We had to put a boiler at West, and put an air conditioning unit at junior high, middle school. We had to put a water heater in. We had to put a steamer in the cafeteria. If you have any high school students, you know that their menu got changed a couple weeks ago until we got a new steamer in. And we're going to have to fix major fixing of the high school road and the ed complex road. When the water comes in, it comes running down the steps. So we got to get it fixed. And so we do need to do something. Barman and Miller has told us that the short-term fix for our schools is $10 million. One of the problems that we have is when we get these unexpected ones, we know some of the things that are going to happen, but when the border blows up, you got to keep the kids at West warm. So you got to get one in as quickly as you can. When the hot water heater at the junior high goes out, you got to get one in right now. And so these are the things that we're facing, as well as other things. With that, I think I'm well qualified. I think I've done an excellent job. I think we've made some wise decisions, and I think we have wonderful employees.
All right, we will have a time here if the candidates would like to. They may respond or comment upon the statements made by other candidates at this time. Okay. Going once. What we also would like to do now is to give the public the opportunity to address their questions that they might have to the candidates at this time.
Somebody be brave and ask a question.
My question is, given your attendance last night, what would be your strategy or plan or something different in the approach
totally different than what I've ever heard about deficit spending. So
If I could ask, what was the first statement you said regarding last night? I wasn't in attendance.
Oh, you were last, I didn't make eye contact with every person, I didn't realize you weren't there.
No, it's not.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, because that was such an issue last night, I guess is why I asked this question. My definition of deficit spending is if my income is less than what I want and I charge it, then I'm in deficit spending. If I borrow from, and I used the example last night, my retirement fund to buy a car, that's deficit spending my future. Now, on an annual budget, deficit spending would mean spending more money per year than what you take in. Right? Now, enlighten me to your definition. Well, that's not a question, I'm sorry. I should.
well, my definition of deficit spending is spending more money than we have. There's a difference between what you have and what you bring in.
Also, I would pop in real quick too, and I might, I met with the treasurer a couple of times. He told me that the balance at the end of 15 will be $8.5 million. The carryover, and it says carryover, the carryover at the end of 16 will be over $9 million. Now, it's really not unlike what we deal with at City Council with the city budget. We have a carryover there as well, and it says cash balance. Carryover that we are going to have with the city and with the school, in my mind, are pretty equitable. And I mean, I don't understand where we're spending more than what we've got if it says right here that we've got $8.5 million projected as a cash balance at the end of 2015.
Until the last 2 years, as I understand it, we spent more each year than we took in that year. That puts us in deficit spending.
Not according to the treasurer's numbers that he gave me. I mean, it says right here that.
The reserve, well, I did, I'm not going to, I just wanted to hear each of your blocks if you want that.
Part of the 5-year forecast, as I understand it from being in school, is you can't assume anything. This is money that we have and we know we have. At some point in time, has this board asked Mick to, I know we have levies coming up for renewal. Okay, and this assumes that those things aren't going to be renewed, correct? Okay, have we asked Mick, or has anybody on the board asked Mick, just hypothetically, if the levies are renewed, where are we at money-wise?
Those aren't the assumptions that we make. We make it as that.
I understand that, but that would be a question I would ask, because I've seen this community step up and vote for levies and renew levies when the board and when the teachers and administrators and members of the community that support this school system, when they get out and campaign for it, I've seen this community step up and put those back into place. And that's the only thing I was asking the city, if hypothetically anybody has ever asked me to say, hey, what do we got out when these levies get renewed?
Honestly, I don't think I have ever asked that. I just not.
Right.
I didn't.
Well, I know,
I'm
but
sorry.
I would address it to any of the board members, because one of them didn't show up tonight.
I would like to know, well, I pretty much know how you feel on the issue and what information we should give and our views of what we consider deficit.
Well,
I would like to know what Barb and Mark have to say.
One of the things required by the state legislation is that you have to do a 5-year forecast.
I understand.
Nobody can predict what's going to happen. So when you do a 5-year forecast, you have to assume, I know what happens when you do this, okay? You have to assume the levy's not going to pass.
I understand. I've done this for 35 years, so I've been around.
Then you base all of your decisions on that assumption.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying hypothetically, that if this community steps up and renews the levies, and the renewal levies, we're not asking for any more money, the renewals, where would we be financially with those renewals in place in this 5-year forecast? I know we can't send it to the state. I know that's not how it works, but I'm saying hypothetically. And then as a school board member, knowing these were down the road and knowing where we were financially, I'd start working my tail off to get them renewed, not 3 months before, not 4 months before, but start letting the public know a good year ahead of time that, hey, we're going to have this renewal, let's get going with it. This is the information.
To the public. There's a lot of people out there that don't know what the budget is about, and we need to be educating them. The school board needs to be educating them, the teachers need to be educating them, everyone that's involved in this situation needs to be educating the public, because you can't come out and all of a sudden say, hey, we need more money right now, and nobody knows anything about it, and we don't get the point across, and it's too short of a time before the vote comes up, and then we're behind the 8 ball. So as far as deficit spending, if you bring in a certain amount of money and you spend more than you bring in, that's deficit spending in my book. Okay?
I'd like to make a point there as well. So, and I saw that the forecast for 2020 carryover is $14,132,000. And I guess my point would be, I am saddened by the fact that every 2 years in Salina when it's contract time, it's a crisis. We're in a crisis. I guess I'm like him in the regard, I can look at numbers just like these guys can, and I don't want to spend more money than what we have, but I guess what I would suggest is somehow other school districts 6 or 7 miles away from us, they're not going through this every 2 years. No.
I totally agree with that. I think that we kind of turn the community off because they hear us scramble every couple of years, and it's always got to do, it's based on the teacher's salary. It seems like that's always the nemesis, the situation. And as a result, they don't want to give increases. They don't see that increases are necessary in some cases. Deficit spending. I don't do it at my house if I can avoid it. I mean, I try to live within a budget. And I think the school does too, but we've got expensive roofs that need to be repaired. We have a lot of expenditures going on. We don't have very much money coming in. I think right now, and the communication, like I said earlier, like these guys said, we're not communicating it well enough. I don't think there is quite enough of a plan on this. I think it's coming though. I really do. I think there is a plan that's going to be, it's going to become more aware in the future as we get our finances a little bit more clearly put into everyone's heads. I work with them, but right now we're kind of chasing our tail. And that being said, it hurts everybody. And then when the teachers come out and say we need a raise, I mean, everybody within the school district willingly said we'll help you out 6 years ago. They didn't mean they were going to help it forever.
I'll jump in.
Anyone, sorry.
My answer would be that you put in the budget an allotment for a raise. And if you do that from the very beginning, it's not that difficult. Here's a pie chart, here's a slice. That's not going to be touched. we do it with the city, and when we come contract time, that is set aside, we're not gonna mess with it. If we don't stay competitive with other districts, what has happened is going to continue, and it's gonna get worse. She alluded to the fact earlier, Barb did, that we're losing how many students to other districts? 222, and it's costing us $750,000 a year that we are paying other districts for students that should be coming here. What's gonna happen when we become more imperiled with, as a district, with students that live on the border of Coldwater or Marion or wherever?
I agree with Bill on that. And the other thing is you look at the facilities, look at the other schools that are around us. We thought everybody else now has already had their buildings redone or rebuilt. Parkway's got a whole new school system, and we've got some old buildings here. And if the student has a choice to go to an old shabby building, or they can go to another school district and go to an open enrollment to another school district, a lot of parents will take that option. So we have to have a comprehensive plan. We can't just do one or the other. We have to do it all together. And we have to plan this out, and we have to, as Bill said, forecast for raises and things like that, because everybody needs cost adjustment living wherever you go. So I think that is what we need to do. We need to have a comprehensive plan for both the building and the salaries.
We were in a lot of different school districts. We're in a lot of different school districts as we follow our grandchildren around playing in sports. And I'm always amazed at the beauty and the comfort of those new buildings. Wide hallways, tall ceilings, no furniture in the halls. They don't have tables and they have ventilation, they have comfort. We have a great football field, we've got a great field house, a lot of good facilities that I think are outstanding. I'm always a little embarrassed when some of those really good looking school districts come to school to participate in things here. Just a little bit embarrassed. Our schools are great. Our custodians do an immaculate job, a perfect job in my opinion of keeping them looking good. There's good paint on these walls, those floors shine like you can't imagine. There's even some pretty good curb appeal. But I can show you a wall of the Ed complex that is crumbling and falling down. I can show you the roofs that are leaking by the bucket full. And one of the places that's really bad is the brand new building in Salina. It's one of the worst as far as the leakage goes, as far as the schools. Do I want to build new buildings? Do I want to increase levies? Do I want to increase taxes? I don't know. I'm doing the same thing you are. But we have to find a way. And what I'm hearing right now is that we're not getting enough money in permanent improvement-wise, and they're going to pay 54% of a building plan. I think you got to look at that picture. If you get 54% coming in from other resources and, unfortunately, yes, levies, that will improve the state of the buildings and still leave money in our general fund to give raises on a regular basis without a fight every time.
What it's going to take some time. It's going to take some planning. But the imperative thing is to get on it right now, because we're just falling farther and farther behind, and we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to dig ourselves out. I look at our base salary. We've got to become competitive. Coldwater is $5,000 more than Salina as far as their base salary goes. We are in last place. So between Salina, Coldwater, Minster, St. Mary's, Walpole Parkway, the Bremen, Fort Recovery, and Marion local, we're in last place right now. You guys took the freeze, and I think, I don't know if you were promised, I wasn't a part of those negotiations at that time, but you took it thinking things are going to get restored. Well, right now it's going to be a while if we go the way we're going before it ever gets restored. And in the meantime, Coldwater is going to jack up their base, and we're going to be sitting here at a nice, friendly little number. And I'm concerned about community-wise, not only with the school district, but the community. What's going to happen in the Salina community? If our school
the first question, when a young couple moves to the community, every time. And that's that. I mean, just the fact that, like I said earlier, we're bleeding, we got something. You know, the head football coach wouldn't send us our athletes against St. Mary's if they're only working out the weight room a half an hour a day. You know, they're in there working as hard as anybody else. We've got to be competitive, we've got to be fair. One of my ex-students, she was a great little girl. She went into education, and I said, hey, I hope you come back and teach in slime. She went to high state. Mr. Sal, I can't afford to come back and teach in slime.
One of the things that your comparison, though, the schools that you are comparing with at this time have already finished the negotiations. Once the negotiations are signed and it's finished, we will not be bothered.
But for us,
Number 11. Number 11 instead of 12.
getting a 3% raise, Kenny, we can move up to second from last.
I want to answer the young lady. One of the things that I did today was I checked how many of our staff lives in the Salina School District and how many lives outside. You will be amazed at how many people that work for Salina Schools do not live in the Salina District and drive from Urbana, Sydney, Versailles, Russia, and Sonia. Now, somewhere along the line, we must be doing something right, but why would you drive from Urbana, Ohio to Salina and back every day?
I just have a question on that. How many of those are in their first 3 or 4 years?
Right.
While we're doing so many things right, I remember, did you say something about the ed complex, beach fix? That's the same place we were going to tear down a few years ago because it wasn't worth fixing. We fixed it. And then we spent money at Montezuma getting those to pass that levy, and we closed it. How many students have we lost to Marion Local? A bunch. And that's income. 5?
The first year that we closed Franklin, we lost 34 students. Is that what you're asking me?
You dropped 34?
First year that Franklin was closed, we lost 34 students to Marion Oak. Okay?
It's
Is that what you're asking me?
now.
How many since then, Ken?
I'm saying we're in the 30s. Remember, they gave us the numbers. I can tell you that it was 222. Parkway got a lot. Marion Oak got a lot.
How much money is that?
$5,800 and some odd dollars a kid.
$750,000.
That we paid to that district.
Well, we should be.
We also have some coming in, so it's offset, but we are at a deficit. We have kids coming from Marion Local, Parkway, Coldwater, Freeman, not sure of any more. We have those coming in, but we send out more than we bring in. Yes.
As a former NEA member, I'm wondering how many of you used to be members of the NEA Teachers Union or are currently retired members?
I'm not.
I had to resign when I became an administrator.
I mean, if I paid.
So when I was a teacher, I paid OEA, NEA dues.
What was it? OEA, automatically, NEA, I would imagine.
Okay, I'll try to ask this so that, how are we going to fix the problem for our new teachers, especially if they were hired while we had, let's say at the beginning of the 4-year freeze, 4 to 5-year freeze? How are we going to fix the problem? They're at 0 yet, and we've hired new teachers in that brought maybe 2 years experience into Salina, but maybe they're on this, but they've actually both taught the same amount of years, and the Salina teacher, the original Salina teacher, is actually getting paid less. I am concerned. There almost needs to be and we do this, a special memorandum, and I'm not a part of any negotiating, but I know in the past there's been special memorandums done to fix that problem, because why should those teachers stay?
Absolutely. Vicki, that's the same question I'd like to ask current board members, because I've got everybody's salary here. It's public information. I went to the superintendent's office and made a public request. And when I worked here, we got these things anyway, so I knew they existed. But I see so many inequities on this salary schedule, it's ridiculous. We've got teachers that are in their 6th year, have their masters, but yet we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, there's 3 different pays for those teachers with the same number of years of experience. But if you come from outside of the district, you get that experience. If you're in the district, you don't get it.
Yes.
I don't I did my spreadsheet, and there's so many inequities on there. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that.
Well, real quick, I'll help on that too. I don't understand. Now, 2 people graduated from the same high school, graduated from Salina. They went to the same college, same university. One left the district for 4 years, one stayed. The one that came back is making $3,000 a year more.
Absolutely.
I don't get it.
Now, like I said, that could be, I just would hope that somebody might entertain the possibility of doing a memorandum. It can't be that many of them. A memorandum of understanding to fix that inconsistency.
If the information I got is correct, and my simple math skills, I was a social studies teacher after all. I went through and put each teacher at their proper step. It would cost the district around $610,000 just to do that. To put everybody at their proper steps. But I know I've got teachers on this list that are no longer here, and they were included in that. There are some teachers who are going to get an enormous raise just by putting them on their step. No percent increase on the base, just reinstating the steps. And I know, at least from what I read on the Salina School website, it's not supposed to be there. Don't know who's responsible for that, but the teachers weren't asking for full step reinstate. They were asking for 1 step, I believe. That's not asking for a whole lot. So, you know, like I said earlier, we got to do some planning, but
Vicki, in response to your question, the board is aware of it. It's something that we've got to try to come up with an equitable solution. One of your teachers came to see me, laid out, she was a 4-year Salina teacher. Another teacher was hired in with 4 years experience, and she makes more money than the girl that stayed with her for 4 years. We realize that's inequitable. We got to fix it.
Then do it.
Well, it's not fair to the young lady that's given us 4 years of service. She's an excellent teacher, by the way. I love her.
Isn't that what you're negotiating right now?
I'm concerned with all of this. Why am I being singled out? Why am I the one?
Coach Kenny, you were the only one that had guts enough to show up today.
Yeah!
I'm your representative. And the best I can do you is I'll tell you exactly how I think, I'll tell you how I came to my conclusions, and from there on, it's up to you. But I think I've served the district well for 16 years. And I think we have an extra staff no matter what they say out there. I love Salina teaching.
So Kenny, I totally agree. You have given everything that you believe in all these years. I totally agree with that, and I've done a good job with it. However, we're faced with a problem now that we've got to move on. And no matter who's on the board, it's going to be an enormous problem to figure out. Like I said, we're chasing the collective tail right now, and I didn't know it until this week. It's not just raises, we are behind in generating funds in general. And so, you know, the board is gonna, whoever goes on this board, we're not gonna be well liked. I mean, you know, we're gonna make some enemies along the way.
One of the things we're gonna have to do is manage money, I think, a little bit better. We've got some situations where I think we've mismanaged some money. We're paying $18,000 to a gentleman who just simply says no.
Yes.
I know I spoke out against, and this is going to get a little controversial, and maybe I step on toes, but I got my toes stepped on a few times. So when the high school went to trimesters, I tried to talk some sense into the people that were promoting it, saying it's not where we want to go. I answered a lot of teachers' questions. I answered a lot of students' questions, and I was in support of those people because they didn't want to go that way either. But a rough estimate, it cost this district $600,000 to go to trimesters. And now where are we at right now? We're back.
Yeah.
That's at $600,000 that could go to put everybody back on their steps.
Absolutely.
It was a fancy little experiment that didn't work. It was supposed to increase academic time and test scores. I don't think it did that.
Where did we spend the 600?
Well, we had dropped enrollment, and we didn't need as many. We would have had to cut a couple of high school teachers, because that's primarily where the costs were.
Right.
We bought a ton of new textbooks because we had to incorporate new classes into the high school, and I was curriculum director, so guess what? I ordered the textbooks, so I know what we spent on them. So, I mean, that's where the money.
We spent the money on textbooks.
Textbooks and teacher salaries, yeah. Because
So we got teachers.
well, we didn't cut teachers at that time because when I first started as principal of the high school, we had 57 teachers, full-time teachers. That was 2001, I became principal. We had a little over 1,000 students. When I left in 2007 to go to the central office, we had declined in enrollment about 180 students. And we cut a few teachers then. But the 7 years I was in the central office and we had trimesters, I think there were 55 and a half or 50, I'm not sure, I have to go back and look at my notes, but I think we had 54 teachers when I left high school, 55. And 7 years later, when we incorporated trimesters, we had to keep all those teachers because we didn't have study halls and no place to put kids. So, in my estimation, I think some classes were created that didn't necessarily need to be created, and kids were put into those just to have a place to put them. And the number of teachers didn't go down, but our enrollment continued to decline. So, from the time I was principal in 2001 with 57 teachers, we dropped down to 55 teachers when I left as principal, and then 7 years later, 2013, we still had the same number of high school teachers with 200 less students. That's almost a full class, and we didn't cut any teachers. And we didn't necessarily have to cut them. We could have through attrition, we would have lost them, and not had to rehire someone. Some of you young pups might not have had a job, but you would have had a job in another district. But, you know, maybe that's where I see some problems. And I tried to speak out against it. I was told to keep my mouth shut and stay out of the high school.
You did better than I did because I spoke out against it in an open forum.
I understand you did.
My question was,
But I was still, you were retired, I was still working. I wasn't.
you know, Mrs. Piper, one of my fellow board members, she'll know that I asked the question. We've been through the 7th period day, the 8th period day, the 9th period day, the 17 mods, and every one of them was the savior of education. And when did we go back to? The 8th period day. When are we going back to the 8th period day? Now, what did it take us? 3 years? 4 years? We're back. And one of the things I had against the trimesters is we killed the arts. We killed the band, we killed the choir, we killed the art teacher, the music, we killed them. Now we're getting them back.
But in the meantime, we lost some child beyond.
Mr. Shellbarger also brought up a point that, and I just wanted to comment on something that he said. I might as well say the board attorney was paid a lot of money to represent, and is still being paid a lot of money to represent the board's position in negotiation. And I understand the importance of having a legal system interpreted as school law. I understand that. I understand it from the other side. But it wasn't that long ago that we didn't do it that way. And I know there's a lot of districts around here that are not much smaller than our district that first those teams go in without legal representatives. They said, can we come to an agreement on the very foundation, the very basis first, can we come to an agreement? Let's see if we can do that without any legal representatives in here. Think how much money would have been saved.
Absolutely.
Sure, I know we're courtesy on this already, but I want to hear from each candidate. What is your position on the Board of Education publishing the contract proposals on the school's website over the weekend? And additionally, I'd ask Mr. Fetters if that was done, did the board do that on their own accord or at the advice of their attorney? I can repeat that question.
Start.
Whoever.
He's getting it repeated straight. I think it was highly inappropriate. And then why there was not an unfair labor practice established over it, I'm still a little concerned.
I feel like I'm wrong in things, but if I can say one thing about unfair labor practices, that doesn't mean squat. Nothing happens from it. It's something to throw out to the public and say, you know, like this.
It's respect.
I would agree that it looks like we're trying to play to the court of public opinion, and there's a degree of ethics. You know, I'm not going to take a government exam and put the answers on the board while the test is still out there. That's not ethical.
King interpreted for me. I think that it was a joint decision to post it, and yes, an attorney had been contacted earlier. No, it was not against the law. Now, whether you think it was ethical or not, that's up to you.
It goes against what the Ohio School Board said. It goes against what these guys say. Your Ohio School Boards Association says you got to remain confidential, especially in negotiations.
My position is neutral because I have not been a teacher and I have not been on board. But if somebody says that they're not supposed to put it out there, then it shouldn't be put out.
together and both sides are talking about what's been proposed by each. But what are we gonna give and what are we gonna take? Bang, here it is. I mean, that's not the way to do things.
I think going back to that also, going back to what we said before, there's got to be planning involved. It can't come down to a crisis every time that you have a negotiation. You know, after this one is settled, that 2 more years from now, you're going to have to do that. Why are we waiting until three weeks before this is done to get this taken care of? We need to be starting negotiating right after, just like people when they're running for office and president, as soon as they get elected, they go right around, they start trying to try to get re-elected. So the same thing needs to happen here because we need to continue to work together.
To change the negotiating contract because it's specifically spelled out when 2 sides can come together. So you have to change the contract with the teachers to start with.
But you know, in 2 years, you're gonna have to have a new contract.
Just arbitrarily negotiate whenever you want.
Can't hear on this side.
Can't hear the question.
There wasn't a question, I thought he was recognizing someone over here, and I was raising my hand, waiting for him to decide to do it. This is a short meeting question. You've all done a lot of good points, and I'm very impressed, but all I see you bringing forward is where we compare with base pay. My question is, have you compared, for instance, base pay at Coldwater stays there, Florence High stays there for a number of years, because you're asking the teacher. Have you compared what other districts pay in insurance compared to our district? Have you compared where we are at the top end of the salary scale and where we compare there? Because the total package does not include just the base pay. Have you done that research, is my question?
Now, I haven't personally got there yet, Cindy, but I know at the top end of the scale, we're third from the bottom.
Boy, Brian, we were looking at some last night, and this is something that we.
Of the ones I said, I mean, the numbers I've got here, and I trust these to be correct, because I looked at the contract. We're third from the bottom, at the top end of the scale. The masters plus third, max. They may have further steps to get there, like, Parkway, it takes 30 years to get there, but we do it at 20 years. But we top out at 20. These guys don't top out until 25 on summer.
Okay, but then,
What's that?
then you're not comparing apples to apples if you're saying they have another step beyond. What's their index factor?
I don't have those.
I know you.
That's,
We're working on it.
okay.
We want the information you guys have, but we're not on the subject.
Part of my responsibility to this city, even though I agree, I mean, you have to be able to compare apples to apples, and insurance policies and, you know, all of it. But at the same time, what brings new, fresh people in the door is that base. And if you're going to attract somebody that's talented and is competent, you gotta get something to bring to the door.
Cindy, I will speak for the insurance part, but I was on the insurance consortium for 18 years, and for the entire 13 school districts, and chairman of the medical committee for 4 of those. I know pretty much what the school districts pay, unless they've changed it in the last 15 months. It's very comparable. They try to keep all of the schools paying similar amounts. Yes, there are some that pay more than Salina. Salina pays more than others for their premium. It's usually anywhere from 5% up to as much as 15% being paid by the individual. The insurance policy for insurance and prescription runs about $1,800 a month for a family plan. And so they do pay a percentage of that based on what the consortium says they need to pay.
So, can you tell me, I obviously, there's another question involved there, that comes later, maybe it should come first. As a board, you're party of 5.
saying, every time, if we've got a consensus agenda, and everything comes up 5-0.
But those things are normal running day-to-day things.
So,
I don't
if there's a
understand.
debate,
Did you say that we should, if you were in dissension,
No, I'm
should
getting
we
to
agree?
your point about the posting of the proposals on the website. It's also acknowledged now, do you realize that perhaps there was not complete agreement in that was.
and I would speak out, if I was on the board, I would speak out and say, I didn't want this, I'm sorry.
But you have empowered.
Pardon?
Do you know for a fact?
No, I don't.
that that's happened? Okay.
Especially if it was 5-0, how would we ever know?
Where was that 5-0?
No, I don't know, but you're suggesting that you should support the majority. And I guess what I would suggest is, there's many times on city council I vote no, and I think that's right.
But Bill, your hands will be just as tied as mine are because you have family in the district.
Understood.
When it comes to that, you're going to have to stand back and say, you've got to let the team do it. We appointed a team, they appointed a team, and they were choosing not to tell their people anything. What the young teachers were marching for, they were not telling them that they want another step on their base pay. At the top end, there's a proposed step 25, says you read those information. It's for me, fine. I was told I was too defensive last night. I don't think we're leading because I don't think enough information has been shared with the people that CEA said they want to protect the most. And that's the young, attract the young, keep the young. But yet what they are proposed is is so huge in amount of dollars. There's only one piece of pie, or one pie, and it can only be divided up.
Well, the teachers at the top end of the scale don't have any more steps, they're topped
They
out.
all,
They're
what I'm
topped out.
saying. There's, what I am hearing is.
We're not here for.
She doesn't know that because it's ongoing negotiation.
Right. No, it's already gone.
It's ongoing.
My question was, do you understand that? Have you done the research on everything before you make these blanket statements about?
I've made a blanket statement, because I want to run for school.
Share with me where that $600,000 was wasted.
Oh, then,
Yeah, that I could
teacher
look at
salary
and
and
say,
textbooks for classes we didn't need.
why didn't you tell us that?
Why you
did.
It's an emotional topic.
It is.
It's very emotional. I get told by a gentleman who is no longer here, and I'm not going to bring his name up, you keep your mouth shut and you stay out of the high school. It's on my evaluation. I saw
Did the board know? This is, I can't give enough.
Who does the evaluation of this person? No.
I'm
No,
back.
superintendent. If you want to know, yeah, that's who it was. Superintendent. Huh?
Superintendent evaluated you.
I didn't get evaluated, no. Yeah.
What I think we need is a very frank dialogue.
All right, let's move on. Reverend Candidates.
I do have a statement to make. I find it very inappropriate that I have board members in this district speaking on behalf of the Salina Education Association. We are the voice for the association and not the board, and we request that you respect that. Thank you.
During each candidate's statement before this all started, we said that Salina should not control the Salina school system. The state and the federal government should stay out of Salina school system. How do we prepare our students to be
see things brought into this district that doesn't represent this community's values.
You mean like Common Core?
Yes, like Common
Proposal
Core.
for 26 Republican governors to equalize education in the United States. Why should a Texas high school graduate only be able to read to Ohio 8th grade level? They can graduate from Texas high school.
That's
Get
Texas.
preferential
I'm
treatment on
talking about
jobs for
Salina.
Ohio students.
I'm talking about Salina High School.
On the academic level.
I'm talking about Salina High School. We want to have
If
the
they come to
best,
Salina,
we want to have the best students in the state.
if they come to Salina, they can only perform at the 8th grade level, after they've already graduated Texas. But if our students have moved to Texas for a job, they don't get credit for the work they do here in Salina if you don't have a common evaluation across the nation.
If I can speak to that one, it was always tough as a high school principal when somebody would move in and they were on a different situation than what Salina High School was. We had to scramble and finagle and juggle things to get kids going. Common Core, as I see it, is a result, it goes back 10, 15 years ago. The push back then was to nationalize curriculum. And it started with No Child Left Behind. The name gets changed along the way. It becomes Race to the Top with a new president. And by the way, you know, No Child Left Behind was an unfunded mandate. At least Race to the Top, we got some money out of it. And now that the money's all dried up,
We're gonna die.
it's probably going to die, but it's not unlike other curriculums that you know, that come and go. If you look at education throughout the years, it's cyclical. When I first started, we did PPLs, pupil performance objectives. Now these teachers have to do SLOs. They're the same thing. They come and they go and they come and they go. Common Core, when we get a new president, George, or we get a new governor, we're probably going to get a new curriculum. And the neat thing about the whole thing, these guys, the teachers out here, adapt and make do with what they've got and do the best job of educating kids.
One of the things that Mr. Sept taught you in his government class is there are 3 powers in the Constitution that are residual. One of them is marriage and divorce, one of them is voting, and one of them is education. And that is controlled by the state.
We're the same age. I didn't have it.
I give Mr. Sept credit for it, okay? And so when these gentlemen or myself, and this is Voorhees gets on the board, the first thing we're going to do is swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the state of Ohio. And so, the state legislatures implement Common Core. It's nothing more than a set of standards. Do I like the park testing? Heck, no, I didn't like park testing. That was a waste of time, a waste of our teachers' effort. They were wasting too much time. But you know what? One of these days, Common Core is going to go by the wayside, as Kurt said. We've got something else, and it'll come in. Right now, they're teaching math. I don't understand it. I couldn't help them. The little kid do math if I had to. But you know what? One of these days, we're going to go back to the old way. But remember, maybe when you were still, we had new math. Well, it's too old again. When we went from old math to new math, back when I was at the high school, we had some kids that weren't going to graduate if they didn't get math. So Glenn Heeman and I took them. And we said, okay, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to learn, and nobody's ever going to cheat you when you're out in trouble. So we would do problems. And when I said, if you go home, and Grandpa's got a better way of doing this than I do, that's okay. That's okay. And I don't know how teachers teach this new math today. I look at it. I can't do it. I'm amazed that we got so many people that know how to do it. Myself.
I went to a class yesterday and watched 2 math teachers do it. And I was extremely impressed because I felt the same way. I didn't know how it was being done. They're teaching it the regular way, the old way. And then if they get kids that can't understand it, they have 5 other methods over to the side that are Common Core methods. And they can pull one of those out, and maybe that child will learn in a different way. But the original way they're teaching it, I
classroom, it's crazy. So, I mean, everybody in here would think that, you know, if you're doing square root in the 8th grade, well, you should probably be doing that. Or you guys talking about government class, you should probably have the Bill of Rights somewhere in the curriculum, or the Constitution. We would all agree with some basic standards, but the amount of testing that they require for it is just, the same people that said we need time on task in the classroom are the same ones that are requiring a 60 examination by the time you graduate.
I have a question. Being a newer teacher, I was one of those trimester hires, and I do teach a lot of new classes that may or may not be necessary, but I teach them. Moving forward, now that we have all these financial difficulties, I guess you could say, are the new teachers that were hired as a result of the trimester experiment, or whatever you want to call it, is downsizing those teachers going to be a legitimate option as far as how to get back some of those funds?
I think it should happen probably through attrition and natural retirement. You don't need to go along flopping heads. I mean, there's going to be X amount of teachers every year that's going to retire. And we can control the amount of teachers per classroom, per building that way, rather than walking around and saying you're gone. That would be my response.
The only reason I would agree with what Mr. Sept said, I think we're going to have enough retirees that's not going to be a problem. When I made the comment about some of these classrooms that were created, or these classes that were created, I'd get a book order a week before school saying we need these next week. And I said, when did this class happen? Well, we did it yesterday. That's.
No, I wasn't taking offense or anything to that.
It was a point that I probably needed to clarify.
I'd like to ask the candidates up there what they think about retire and rehire. I'd like to know their opinion.
I'm on record, I'm against it.
I would have no problem with it.
What would it save the school district money?
Keep the young teacher out of the job.
I know Mr. Roth was, I'm sorry, Mr. Roth was a Latin teacher, he was a wonderful guy, everybody was around, liked the guy. Hey, Mr. Roth, what would happen if you retired from teaching, he's ready to step down? If you came back 3 periods a day, would you be willing to do that? Sure. Nobody else in the area was qualified to teach Latin. There are certain instances where retire, rehire is appropriate, and it's not putting a young guy out of the job.
As far as my opinion, retire, rehire, I don't like the idea of taking a position away from a younger teacher, but as Mr. Saul said, and there are certain instances, I don't think you can make a blanket statement regarding that.
I think they just need to say, no, I'm not actually against it. Yes, it takes jobs away from younger people. If it's a second grade teacher that's wanting to be retired, I see no reason for that. We've got 1 million second grade teachers coming out of Wright State Lake campus every year in the second grade level. Mr. Roth was a legend at his time, and I would love to have kept him a whole lot longer.
There are times, I'm not opposed to it whatsoever, but as a former high school principal trying to hire a physics teacher, good luck. You might find, if you can get 4 to interview and come to Salina to interview, they probably don't want to come here and teach it. They need a better job doing something else. Those kind of positions are awfully tough. But
Which is
if
the
you got a
reason
good
we can't
one,
make a blanket statement.
Listen, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Don't forget to vote.